They called it the Ronson, because, like the lighter, it lit the first time every time. But what they didn't tell you was what it felt like to be inside when it did. The M4 Sherman wasn't designed to be a death trap. In fact, when it rolled off the production line in 1942, it was everything the U.S. Army wanted: light, reliable, and easy to mass produce. It was a war of numbers. America needed a tank that could be built fast, shipped across oceans, and repaired in muddy fields by men with basic tools. The Sherman delivered on every one of those promises. But there was a catch. Its armor? Thin, just 50 millimeters in early models. Its gun? The 75 millimeters, decent against Panzer IIIs and early IVs, but hopeless when the Tigers and Panthers arrived. By mid-1944, German shells sliced through Shermans like they were paper. And when that steel hull was punctured, the real nightmare began. Imagine 5 men crammed into a steel box barely big enough to stand in. Heat cooking the air, sweat dripping down the back of your neck. The constant stench of fuel and oil. Every rattle, every shell burst outside, a reminder, you're trapped. The Sherman ran on aviation-grade gasoline, highly flammable, stored in tanks that lined the hull. One well-placed hit, and the interior turned into an oven. Survivors' words: if you didn't get out in the first 10 seconds, you didn't get out at all. That's what gave the Sherman its dark nickname, the Ronson Lighter. Crews knew that if the armor was breached, the combination of gasoline and stored ammunition meant one thing: instant inferno. Normandy, June 1944. The Bocage country was supposed to favor the Sherman's speed and numbers. Instead, it became a graveyard. German 88s, concealed in hedgerows and fields, picked off Shermans one by one. Imagine the scene. A Sherman advances, turret slowly rotating, when an armor-piercing shell rips through the hull. Inside, there's no warning. Just a deafening blast, blinding heat, and fire swallowing everything. One veteran described it best. It was like sitting in a steel coffin while someone lit a match. Out of every 5-man crew, maybe 2 would make out alive. Sometimes 1, sometimes none. Here's the paradox: the Sherman was good enough. It could be mass-produced. Nearly 50,000 were built by the end of the war. Crews could be trained quickly, repairs were simple, and spare parts were everywhere. For the U.S. and its allies, it wasn't about building the best tank. It was about building enough tanks. Shermans weren't meant to go toe-to-toe with Tigers. They worked in teams, swarming German armor with sheer numbers, relying on coordination, artillery, and air support to even the odds. But for the men inside, that strategy meant living with the constant knowledge you were expendable. By 1944, crews weren't waiting for command to catch up. They improvised. Wet stowage, ammunition racks surrounded by water jackets to prevent cook-offs. Extra armor, sandbags, logs, even spare track links welded to the hull. Fire drills. Every man rehearsed bailing out, over and over, because seconds meant the difference between life and death. Upgraded variants like the M4A3E8, Easy 8, gave crews better protection and a higher velocity 76 mm gun. But by then, the legend of the Ronson Lighter was already burned into the minds of every tanker on the Western Front. The Ronson Lighter nickname didn't actually originate with U.S. tankers. British crews in North Africa coined it first during the desert campaigns of '42. Statistically, survival rates improved dramatically once wet stowage was introduced in mid-1944, reducing internal fires by nearly 75%. Despite its flaws, the Sherman outperformed many German tanks in one critical category: uptime. Tigers and Panthers broke down constantly. Shermans almost never did. Beyond the stats, there's the human side. Imagine rolling out day after day, knowing that the enemy's first shot would almost certainly punch through your armor. You hear the hiss of incoming shells and feel your gut tighten, wondering if this is the time your luck runs out. Crews develop their own superstitions. A lucky coin taped to the dashboard. A photograph of home stuffed near the periscope. Anything to keep the fear at bay. Some veterans admitted, years later, that the terror never really left them. The smell of burning fuel. The screams. The feeling of being trapped. Today, the Sherman is remembered as the tank that won the war, and in many ways, that's true. Its numbers overwhelmed the German war machine. Its reliability kept offensives moving. But for the men inside, it was something else entirely. A weapon that demanded everything: courage, endurance, and the ability to climb into that steel box again and again, knowing how quickly it could all end. Modern historians have softened the Ronson myth, pointing to improvements that made later Shermans far safer. But the stories, the raw, unfiltered memories of the men who lived and died inside, keep the legend alive. The M4 Sherman wasn't the best tank of the war. But war isn't about the best. It's about what you can build, what you can field, and how many men you can send into the fire before the job is done. And for every man who climbed into that steel furnace and didn't climb back out, the name Ronson wasn't a joke. It was the truth.